Hello and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rehana Khan Parker and I'm from Cape Town. I've been in practice as Rehana Khan Parker and Associates for over 27 years and have had extensive experience on being an examiner for the attorneys' admissions examinations. I know it's that time of the year where we're all feeling extremely nervous, myself included, because I also have a candidate attorney who's sitting for the examinations. And yes, it is an extremely nervous time of the year. But let me just offer you a few tips. There's no ways that you'd be able to come into these examinations if you have not had any practical experience. In relations to estates, that is relatively very little that one can ask in terms of an examination paper. So if you haven't done a liquidation and distribution account, you better quickly go and have a peek in your office and see how it's to be done. Apart from the liquidation and distribution account, understand what is a small estate and when does one issue a Section 18.3 or obtain a letters of authority in terms of Section 18.3, and when does one require to report a larger estate where one would require advertisements in the newspaper in terms of Section 29 and then 35. Also, please do not go into the estates examinations if you have not ever drawn up a will. If you haven't, this is the time now with Pro Bono Wills Week to do a couple of wills free of charge for people. You can do a single will and also know how to do a joint will. A very important question that often comes up in the examinations is how to do the estate duty calculation. So there's another tip that I would like to offer you. Look at those sort of areas where you know are typical exam questions that will come in an estates paper. If you've covered that basis, I think you would be doing quite well in estates. Thank you. All the best. With regard to general practice, yes, again, if you've not done any lease agreements or letters of demands or suretyships, then it's certainly a very challenging paper. But do understand the different forms of entities that do exist that you should know from having done commercial law or private law or mercantile law at university. But do know how to draft a letter of demand. Look around the office, see, and if you haven't done it, get your teeth into it immediately. Lease agreements and suretyship agreements. Look at lease agreements. There are lots of precedents as well as amylars as to how to word a lease agreement. Always the typical question that would come in is the default clause or the breach clause. In other words, you as a legal practitioner would always be asked, how do I sort of protect my rights in terms of a lease agreement, whether as landlord or as tenant? And of course, the first clause that we would look at is, of course, the breach clause. So look at that and see how it's drafted. Apart from that, of course, apart from the lease agreement, is the suretyship agreement. Look at the wording, look at the specific clauses in those agreements. Even if you're going to be able to parrot fashion it, please do so. Other typical questions that would come in the practice paper would be partnership agreements, how to perhaps draw a breach clause in a deed of sale, a suspensive conditions and a resolutive condition in a deed of sale. Please have a look at that. So that's my tips from me in a nutshell. Go through it, look at the practical examinations which I've set in the past. It gives you a pretty good idea. Wish you all the best. Bye. And last but not least, the MVA question. Look at the various classes of claimants that one would be able to institute an action on behalf of. Look at the hit and run. Prescription periods are very important, and typically in the motor vehicle accident section paper of the paper, there will be a problem. It will be in form of a problem statement, and you would have to be able to quote all the various heads of damages and identify and apply them. For the criminal procedure paper, yes, it would be perhaps how to draft an appeal or anything relating to a bail, I would think. Look at past papers. There's also only a limited amount of sections where questions can be raised. How to draft a plea of guilty or not guilty, understanding when one can apply for a discharge in terms of section 174. Typical questions in the criminal procedure part of the paper. Wish you all the best and all the success, and look forward to seeing you all being admitted. Goodbye.